clarify
I think
that
I think the
further for
point
us?
he was making is that at a time that you have a huge pool of unemployed and you have very limited consumer purchasing power, in order to get people to work, in order to get the industries to also consolidate or expand as the case may be, in the first place, you need to be able to create an enabling environment in order to create a positive impact. And that enabling environment means that those who want to borrow money in order to invest in businesses should be able to borrow at reasonable rates. In countries where we find that their products are much more competitive in price and quality than ours, you often find that the rate of funds, the cost of funds in those economies may even be as low as 4 or 5%. Meanwhile, you expect the Nigerian entrepreneur, the Nigerian manufacturer to exist with a cost of funds burden of over 20%. So Ken is implying that it is truly the responsibility of the central bank to make sure that cost of funds are low. But unfortunately, instead of central bank attempting to bring down cost of funds with a lower MPR, they are in fact instigating a higher MPR, which ultimately will evolve into higher lending rates in the market, which would prevent people from borrowing and establishing businesses because it becomes too risky.
How much can the CBN really do when the Nigerian economy is still a monoproduct economy, highly dependent on imports and all of that? Yes, I've heard some experts say, look, we need to encourage local, products, local consumption of products as a way of reducing inflation. But how realistic is it that the CBN can actually put some of these measures that, that we talk about in place with this background?
You see, the CBN's responsibility is to create that enabling environment. And that enabling environment...
How can it do that?
Well, I'm just about to come there, okay? That enabling environment gives it the power to modulate cost of funds. Cost of funds is very important in the growth of any economy, okay? By the same token, inflation is also very important because, as I told you earlier, if inflation is at 10% annually, you lose so much income and the people become poorer, okay? But if inflation is at 1 or 2%, as happens in successful economies, you have fairly stable income and fairly stable purchasing power. Fairly stable purchasing power converts to stable consumer demand, which would drive the interest of investors to meet the consumer demands that is in the market. But that consumer demand will never be met if an investor looks at it and says, if I have to borrow at 25% in order to be able to employ more people and produce more of this product. So you see, when people talk of we have to diversify the economy, we have to do this, it makes sense. But what they forget is that these things don't happen in a vacuum. No. Don't happen in a vacuum.
Okay.
All administrations before now, and probably more will probably do the same thing. They all sing the same sing-song of we must diversify. They intend to, but they don't usually realize that that expectation must be predicated on functional monetary policies. In other words, monetary policy rate should probably not be more than 2%. 11%, 12% is a failed monetary, you're in a failed monetary state because then you have ensured that investors, people who want to produce and employ people, would never be able to do so because of the high cost of funds. The people who are supposed also to buy your goods are on a continuous basis losing more and more purchasing power. In other words, they are buying less and less. So who will the investors be producing for?
Okay, let me go to Ken Ife. So is it possible for us to achieve a single-digit, inflation figure at the same time, remain an import-oriented, economy? How is this possible, really? Is it realistic to expect, especially in the lower figures like Mr. Henry Boyo talks about, 2% or thereabout, as it obtains in you know, the advanced world?
I mean, in UK, yeah, it's about 2%, the money policy rate. Now, I want to draw your attention to something. Look at, there are three clear responsibilities of the central bank. One is to control inflation, which Mr. Boy has mentioned. Second one is to maintain financial system stability, you know, which has caused a bit of problem at some point because we had AMCON used 5 trillion public funds to rescue three banks and then went to haywire, acquiring every debt in the banking sector. Now, the third one is to promote sustainable economic development. And in particular, this particular role of the central bank is expressed in growth and employment enhancing monetary policy. So they have a responsibility there. And you quite rightly pointed out that money is the lifeblood of businesses. And if these businesses cannot reach this resource, then output in the economy will continue to depress. Now, the question is this. Inflation targeting was the choice. You know, in the last MPC meeting, they had to make a choice between inflation targeting and obsession with inflation targeting and supporting the growth in the economy. Unfortunately, they chose the obsession with inflation targeting. So inflation does not create the growth. It's the growth that comes back to haunt inflation. Let me give one example. Our GDP has dropped significantly now over this 1 year. Last year, our GDP was $573 billion. That's real GDP. And now it's come down to $493 billion. Now, we've lost almost $100 billion in a year on our GDP, although the GDP purchasing power parity has actually gone up from $1.03 trillion to $1.1 trillion. But you know the story between the two, the difference. So and then you can see all the companies, most companies, corporates are posting losses. You know, so you can't run a policy that keeps a blind eye to the economy, decimating the economy, and then not, okay, look at the statistics on MSMEs. You know that about 37 million of them, accounting for 99% of the number of businesses, and they account for 84% of the employment, 59 million people that they employ. And these people have no access to finance. And they need the finance to produce in the economy. And many things are working against production in the economy. The salaries owed to private sector is depressing the economy. The salaries owed to private to public workers is depressing the economy. Some of the current macroeconomic, macroprudential measures that are restraining access to foreign exchange by Portuguese are also affecting it. You know, targeting 41 courses is a very important thing, but the complementary measures need to come in. You know,
okay, let me come in here and ask you a further question. Do you agree then with those who say that CBN is focusing more on, you know, defending the naira, protecting the naira, rather than actually growing the economy? Is that part of the fallout?
Yeah, I think they need to support the economy more with the diversification agenda, because it's the diversification agenda that will increase export earning. It is the diversification agenda that will reduce the hemorrhage on our foreign reserve. Currently, the CBN receives $1 billion. The demand for Forex is $4.66 billion. For you to attack the demand for Forex, you are attacking with import substitution strategy. You know, and the export, you know, that's the strategy to attack the demand on the Forex. But on the other hand, to push up your revenue, external revenue, you're going to focus on export diversification, you know, increasing export capacity. So you're going to have those key measures to fight the decline in revenue and the pressure on the foreign exchange. But of course, we also know that the government have to clean up their act. They have to deliver more investment environment, and you need the money. You need the money for the businesses to produce. You know, you're just hurting the economy more.
Okay, Mr. Henry Boyo, I mean, 30% of our foreign exchange demands actually go into petroleum products alone. I mean, can any economy even survive under such circumstances? Yes, we've been talking about diversifying the economy, and we all know that this is a long-term thing. What exactly should government be doing right now?
You see, a lot of people believe that the objectives of a low rate of inflation and also a strong naira are mutually exclusive. They don't have to be. The major cause, the critical cause of high rate of inflation is excess surplus supply of naira in the system. Okay? It is because of there is surplus supply of naira in the system that you have less goods in relation, so you have inflation. And so long as you continue to have more and more surplus supply of naira, which the CBN readily admits, the MPC readily admits that excess liquidity is a problem, meaning surplus supply of naira is a problem. So long as you continue,
should the CBN be mopping up again? Is that what you're
I thought you
what
would
you're
ask,
saying?
how does the excess supply come in? That is the critical thing.
Okay.
Because the issue is not, should they be more? You should wonder, why can't we stop?
So why do we have so much naira in
now
circulation?
You're talking. It happens the liquidity surfeit in the country for the past 30 years have been deliberately instigated by the substitution, direct substitution of naira allocations for dollar-denominated distributable revenue.
Okay, let me bring in Kenife to weigh in on this. You did hear what Mr. Henry BOYO said. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, remind me what side, what part of it? Because take quite a few things. Which aspect of what he said that you want me to respond to?
The fact that there's too much naira in circulation and the factors that, have led to this surfeit of the naira in the system.
You have naira in circulation. Where is it? Where is the location of the naira? Are there with the private sector that want to produce? Or are they in the banking sector where they are taking the money to go and buy foreign exchange and trade around trade, and people are hitting our forex positions? So that is the point. And then where is it? And then when does it transmit to private sector, to the real sector, and at what cost? So this is what I was saying, that when they were shifting the money to the commercial banks, it was with the hope that they would play ball. And of course they have not played ball. So they are not putting it back. If they had started lending to the real sector, and then even at their 20%, called 20% or 25%, then it would be one thing. But if they are not leaving lending at all, then the CBN is at liberty to pull back some of that money, because some of those monies are finding their way to go and purchase forex, and because it's liquidity going to in the forex arena and causing more rise. That is part of the problem that they are going to be fighting. So they pull that money back and return them as intervention funds.
Okay.
Where they can say, look, agriculture you must lend to agriculture at 5%. So if CBN says that, then agriculture will have to receive their money at 5%. So, and then, so they can be more stricter on how that money goes. And they look at the vehicle for delivery.
Okay, Mr. Kenife, I'm sorry, we'll have to leave it there. Kenife, an economist, speaking to us on the line from London there on... your final word, what exactly then would be the way forward in very few words, if you can?
Very simply, in the same vein I've spoken all morning, make sure that you close the source of excess liquidity. Why excess liquidity is always in the system. And one of the plausible ways,
and government still plans to pump in some 300 billion naira into the
absolutely
into
in a
the
situation where there's already
to
surplus money. Isn't that
economy?
counterproductive? So in order to be able to have sanity in the economy, you have to plug the major cause of excess liquidity. And you would find that excess liquidity is fueled every time the CBN substitutes naira allocations for dollar-denominated revenue. That creates a problem, you see, because it means when you earn more dollars, as we did when the price of crude oil was 120 and we had $60 billion worth of reserves, was there any respite in the economy? No. Was there a downtrend in the cost of funds? Absolutely no. At the end of the day, once you are able to stop that monopolistic process of CBN substituting naira allocations for dollar revenue and turning around to now auction the dollars. I don't know whether you know the implication of auctioning. When you auction something, you want somebody, you're going to sell it to somebody who pays the highest
bidder.
So if the CBN now turns around to auction those same dollars that they captured in the first place, it means that anybody who pays, says, I will pay 400 naira to a dollar, is more likely to get it than somebody who says, look, it shouldn't be more than 100 naira to a dollar. So you find that the CBN itself, with the practice of auctioning the dollars that it captured earlier, is in fact working against the naira that is supposed to defend.
On that note, I want to say thank you very much, Mr. Henry BOYO.
Thank you.
Top economist. It's been nice talking with you on the show this morning.